Hello, good afternoon everyone. So welcome to another episode of Liquid Brain. So today is the lesson 7 of a 10-part video series about the Google Sheet tutorial. So today we are talking about AppScript. So what is AppScript and how to use it, and in what kind of scenario would you use AppScript rather than a normal function within the Google Sheet itself. So today basically just how to access AppScript will be the first one. So if you're on a normal Google Sheet, which I presume that you go to the website in link in the description down below and download this original this copy of Google Sheets, so they can just go to file and make a copy, and you should be able to save that identical file inside your Google Drive. So once you've done that, what you can do is go to tools and then go to script editor. So this will actually bring you to AppScript. So if you've never heard about AppScript before, AppScript is just like a kind of a programming end for the Google Sheet. So instead of doing things one by one, typing into a Google Sheet like a conventional person, you can actually code everything in Java. In this case, it's kind of a blend of Java, and then use this code to do certain very repetitive tasks or things that you need to deploy in a large scale. So in this case, the example I'm going to use in this video is actually just how to copy paste value from one cell to another. So let's go back to our sheet for the time being. So the idea is very simple. We want to copy E2 to I5. So we want to copy this table to a different table. That's all we need to do. And we need the computer to understand that, to copy this and then send to another location. That's basic it. So how do we do that is that in AppScript, you have to first of all tell the code where is the source of the file, what is the source of the sheet, and where is the source of the tab, where is the source of the range basically. So I've written a very simple script over here, which is actually based on the spreadsheet app, which is actually a little bit older than what is basically available now. So you'll see that in the next video. So I have 6 basic input over here: the source link, the source sheet, the source range, and the destination link, destination sheet, and destination range. So the function is very simple. You just key in all this information and you should do it directly. So let me just walk you through the code on how do you do that. So first of all, it has to be run in a function. So whatever you do when you create a new, let's say you create a new script file, new testing, is that you will get something like this. Okay, so everything that you write has to be in a function, otherwise it doesn't know how to run. Okay, so once you create the function, you can just name your function whatever you want, and these are the inputs towards your function. Okay, so in this case, I'm gonna feed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different information into my functions. Okay, so the first one is how do we identify which file to use. So in this case, I'm using a spreadsheet app. So this is the main library that we need to use. And the second one is open by URL. So we're using this library and we open a file by its URL and pass it to a variable called ssraw. So that's the raw spreadsheet. That's basically what it means. And once we've done that, you can actually just go to, once we have opened the file, you can just get sheet by name. So get sheet by name basically. So what we usually like to do is that instead of actually chain command in a single line, we want to separate down into multiple lines so that we can actually debug easily down the line when something happens. We know exactly which line is an error, and it's easier to troubleshoot that way rather than link everything into a single line. And when there's an error, there's a lot of things to troubleshoot and you usually don't know which one. Okay, so the first paragraph over here, what it does is that it runs something to call the spreadsheet library, open the file by URL, get sheet by name, which is which sheet I want to target, which range I want to target, and get the value. So the value can be like array. So in this case, it will be E2 to I5. So get an array and pass it, call a variable called data. So this data will contain the whole table that we want to paste it into a different location later. So then we can actually do something very similar to the destination. So we also open it by URL, get sheet by name, but instead of get value, we use a different command here, which is set value. Okay, so if you're using an array, you have an as. If you don't have an array, you don't have an as. Okay, so similar concept. Call it by the URL, get the sheet, get the range, and then do what you need to do with it. So once you're done with this function, you can just wrap it up a whole function which is called copy paste, and you can have another function that actually do the copy pasting. So all this is to write a single equation. So when you go to Googlesheet and type something, it's actually a function, right? So that's basically the concept of it. And then you go for your input 1, input 2, and input 3. So similar to what we've done with filter, query, VLOOKUP, and so on. So they're just function wrap up and stuff with code inside that runs automatically. Okay, so similar concept. In this case, once we're done with the copy paste, we just need to wrap another function called run, which has no input, which inside the function you have a copy paste with the actual source link, sheets, and range and destination. And yes, it is not recommended to run like this because you can just put the source information directly here and you'll be able to function directly. You are able to run the copy paste file directly. But I like to do it this way because my function here will not usually contain a single run. So in this case, I can also, let's say, copy the whole thing multiple times, reusing the same function run while changing the parameters. So this one is E2 to I5, this one may be a different range, paste to a different range, this one different range into a different range. I can also specify multiple tabs, so we can do multiple copy pasting without rewriting all the codes within our first function. So this just writes the function that we need to execute, while this one actually execute the functions and fit in the raw destination and source link, source sheet, and source range, and so on. So this is a very, very simple way of doing copy paste. And how do we run a function is that we have to select our function. So in this case, if you run the copy paste, nothing will happen because this just define the function. This just declare the function. What it does, what you have to do is go to run because we actually need to run this to get a result. So let's go to our Google Sheet. So we are copying E2 to I5, which is why here I put E2 to I5, and the range is E9 to I12. So you can see E9 to I12. This is the destination sheet. Both of them lies in L7, so that's less than 7. And this is the URL of the file over here, which I believe you can get in the video description down below for the overall code. So what happens is that if I need to run this, is I just go to the play button here and press run. So this is a very, very short script. So it might take maybe a few seconds or milliseconds to run, and you should be able to get your data over here. So just to make sure that it works, let's delete this, go to copy paste, press run, and quickly go back, and you will see it happens in real time. Okay, so that's basically how you do a copy paste. But the question now is that why should we run a copy paste instead of just equals array formula and call it a day? So there are several reasons. First of all is that if you put array formula like equals this directly, every single time it takes time to calculate. And these all are not value by itself. These are all a direct reference to the original table. So if the original table change, this change, but whatever that you copy paste here doesn't change. So let's say if the purpose of you doing this kind of copy pasting is to archive document, the script way definitely works better. The second reason is that the copy paste doesn't have to happens within the same file. So if you want to, let's say I want to input this table into a separate file, there's something called import range where you can import a range from one Google Sheet to another. But we have the same thing. They are linked in real time, and every changes to the source will change the data in the destination. So if that's what you do, of course, don't use the app script. But if the concept is to do a backup, then it's better to run an app script. The third thing here is the app script actually contains a lot less memory and a lot less computing power because they are not linked to the source document. So what you can do in app script is to actually set up a trigger and set it run as a very scheduled basis. So in this case, you can create a trigger so that it will only run, let's say, every hour. So it can also run it every day or even every week, so that it doesn't have to be constantly checking for changes in the source and all that thing. And when you use, let's say, more than 20 or 30 20 or 30 import range or 20 or 30 functions that needs calculation in the same sheet, that slows things down by a lot. But if you only need the things to be updated daily, using this script would definitely speed things up a lot and reduce the RAM usage of your overall Google Sheets. Okay, so basically just to recap what we have done, what is AppScript, how to access it. So AppScript is a kind of a JavaScript backend towards Google Sheet that allows you to do very routine and repetitive tasks in coding rather than typing it directly in the sheets. Okay, so how do you access? You go to Tools and you go to Script Editor, and that will bring you to the Script Editor. So what we're doing here is a copy-paste function, which I've defined over here, where you can actually open a variable, open spreadsheet app, open by URL, get sheet by name, get range, and get value. So this will actually take the array and store it in a variable called data. And then what the things later is to open another file and then another range, and then set the value into that new range. So then after we have finished the function, we have to define another function to actually run the file with the details inside. So you just feed in the 6 required input to the functions, and you will run the copy pasting and you will get new range. So the benefits of AppScript is not linked to the original. It creates a completely separate copy. It's also a lot easier to do AppScript when you have, let's say you want to copy paste 100,000 things. AppScript will allow you to do that. However, if you are copy pasting 100,000 things yourself, it is going to kill you and it's going to take a lot of time. So that's basically everything about the first introduction to AppScript. Stay tuned for later where we will talk about how to actually use AppScript to do a little bit of text replacement as well as generate reports. This is also part 7 of our overall Google Sheet tutorial. Feel free to check out other tutorial if you see any topic that interests you. So for now, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.